Hi, everyone, and welcome to Good Morning Sunshine, a show that is based on mental health, mental strength, and overall well-being. I'm one of your co-hosts today, Brandon Lee, alongside my good friend, Pena.
Today we were talking about how to age gracefully, mind, body, spirit. And we're going to open it up with a good friend of ours, Dr. Art Mollen here. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Dr. Mollen has been a medical doctor for 50 years, and you've been on radio and television, and you have really committed yourself to trying to help people not only age gracefully, but stay strong-minded and keep your body's healthy, and you live by example.
Yeah, I think mental attitude is probably one of the keys to anti-aging. You know, if you have a positive mental attitude and you try to be as happy as you possibly can on a regular basis, I think laughing is something else that we can include. I think that that's probably one of the strongest recommendations I have for anti-aging. Of course, there's exercise and diet, and you know we can expound on that. But positive mental attitude is so important.
How do you keep yourself in a good mental mind frame?
So I think exercise is one of the keys. I mean, when I talk about exercise and all the benefits of it, you know, we can talk about better sleeping, better digestion, improving your cardiovascular system, basically improving every other aspect of your life. And you know, when people run and they exercise or they walk or they jog or they bike or they swim, it increases endorphins, these little chemicals in the brain that basically give you a much more positive mental attitude. So I think that that is one of the keys for people. So if they're isolated, you know, everybody can basically go out and say walk a mile, you know, and I suggest starting with a mile, you know, walk it, jog it, crawl it is usually one of my mantras, you know, and people just need to do it every day. So it's kind of like an addiction, you know, and it's a minimal addictive dose, and if people follow that for at least a 90-day period, they'll feel better, and they'll find so many aspects of their life that they're feeling better about, including their mental attitude, that they'll want to continue to do it. And if they stop, you know, they'll experience depression, anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, all the symptoms you might experience if you were addicted to a drug and then you withdrew that particular drug.
In the social isolation, can you talk about that part of it, staying connected to people?
Yeah, so when I do research studies, and I've written several books, you know, Dr. Mollen's Anti-Aging Diet, and when we look at certain civilizations and how they improve their longevity and people live to be 110, one of the things is a social network. So you need to be in contact, you know, with that social network and kind of keep friends around you. I always tell people, get a lot of younger friends so that they're going to be around, you know, when you get to be 100 or 110. But social networking and family is so critically important. People, you know, I mean, I can't underscore the importance of having family and keeping in contact with your relatives, the cousins, the nieces, the nephews, you know, your grandparents. And I think that's really very, very important.
How important is routine to keeping that up?
Right, and I think that is very important. People need to have a set program. You need to have it on the calendar and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and follow that routine every single day. I mean, for me, you know, I get up at 5 o'clock and, you know, I go out and I do at least 5 miles, and I, you know, go to a 25-meter pool and I swim a mile. I mean, you know, that's...
I'm exhausted.
I mean, that's part of what I did today. And then in the afternoon, of course, I'll bike 10 miles, you know. But, you know, that routine is so critically important to your overall mental attitude. The other thing is when people get isolated, a lot of times they'll, you know, think, well, I'm feeling a little depressed, I'm going to have some alcohol. So I think you have to really be careful, you know, as people get older. You know, I find older people start to drink more than younger people because they're depressed and they're just trying to, you know, comfort themselves in some way. And then eating habits change. So, you know, I think the diet and the, you know, the alcohol, I think all of those are critical components to the whole anti-aging process. I mean, if people, you know, as they get older, they start to gain a little bit of weight, and then they get depressed, and then they're going to have some alcohol because they don't like the way they look or the way they feel. So I think diet is important, and, you know, eliminate the pasta, the rice, the potatoes, the bread. Those 4 components are the things that are going to put the most weight on you. Try to minimize the amount of animal protein. Animal protein is fine, you know, whether it's chicken or fish is usually what I recommend over the red meats, you know, because of the potential carcinogenicity carcinogenic effects of the red meats. So I think from the standpoint of diet, that's important. Caffeine, you can have at least 300 milligrams of caffeine. I know you already had about 500, Brendan. But
it's just a 16-ounce cold brew, doctor.
He doesn't get creamer in it, though.
No, I no creamer. I drink that black. But I wanted to say, because I think we're going to be touching about this later, is that, for those folks who are a bit older, right, and our seniors as well, and a lot of their family has likely passed away, right? So they don't have that family network. But
yes.
Optum Health has created community centers. So even if you are a senior,
yes.
really look into some of these community centers, because that's a way to build that connection.
Great idea, and community is so important just in terms of, where you can go on a regular basis.
Right.
If you can go to these community centers and have interaction with other people,
They even have physical exercises like yoga, tai chi. Just a lot is offered
people
there.
are energy, and you need to have that interaction with other people because that's going to inspire you to feel better and want to do more.
Dr. Art, thank you so much. And I should say Dr. Art Mollen started a podcast. Hope you're feeling good, because you retired after 50 years of practicing medicine.
You can't use that word with me.
Yeah,
dude just ran 5 miles this morning. He's gonna go. He already swam, and he's gonna go for another 10-mile bike ride today.
I know, we seem so lazy today, but we appreciate you, and I hope people check out your podcast, because you give a ton of advice. And one of the things that you're really big on too is preventative medicine, which hopefully then, as people live longer, they live more healthy and beautiful lives.
Right, and they can reduce the amount of medications that they're taking on a regular basis by implementing an exercise and diet program, and they're going to save money, on those prescription medications.
Dr. Art, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now for our inspired story. We held a roundtable series here called TGen Talks Live with a live studio audience, and we invited several of the researchers from TGen. They were here to talk about precision aging, and you heard Dr. Art talking a little bit about this with the blue zones. These are places around the world where people live upwards of 100 years of age, but it's not just the life that they live, it's how they live. They live more healthy than others. So the researchers talked about how they managed to do that, and we all wanted to get some advice from them and share it with you.
Blue zones are, just as you said, these are places throughout the world where, for whatever reason, there tends to be a longer lifespans for people that have somehow found healthy lifestyles. Most of the research suggests that keeping physically active, no surprise, is one thing. Eating right is another. Having social support is incredibly crucial, and this has been hammered home time and time again in research projects. I'm sure Matt would agree. So it's not just the environment, not just your genes, but your social life that is important too.
What about the brains of these people? You visited one of these blue zones, didn't you?
Yeah, I had the privilege to visit some centenarians in Okinawa.
100
people
plus.
Who have lived over 100 years. And as Nick mentioned, it was really striking. These individuals were still very independent, but the beautiful thing was that their family was sort of right out their back door. So they lived in these familial communities with different generations who probably kept them really thinking and being much younger than they really were. It was really quite striking how different that is than sort of a typical household that we grew up in here in the US.
And that was a clip from TGen Talks Live. Those researchers are, the work they're doing, and one focuses on mental health and the other focuses on physicality. So it was really fascinating to hear them talk about this.
Well, also really fascinating, and I learned something new talking about these blue zones, and really these blue zones acting like a highlighter to parts of the world and parts of the globe where people are thriving. They're living to age 100 beyond, right? They're eating healthy, they're living healthy lives, they're exercising. And it's really something that I think America can really look at in these blue zones and really start to mimic and copy some of the things that folks who are thriving in these blue zones are doing to live long, healthy lives.
And you know what's pretty amazing is, I feel like sometimes we overcomplicate things, because a lot of what those researchers, as brilliant as they are, a lot of what they talked about was really pretty simple.
I know, but we live a life of convenience here in the United States. You know, we like to eat out a lot. We like to nuke our food in the microwaves. But you look at these other places in these blue zones, zones and they're eating organic foods, they're eating just natural foods, and they're out exercising, and they're doing the basics, the simple things, in order to live a long, healthy life. I think sometimes we're always on the go
Yes.
in the U.S. We're working multiple jobs, we're working long hours, we're raising families, we're doing all this stuff. So sometimes the convenience of everything ends up being detrimental to our own health.
Slow down a little
Slow
bit. We need
down.
to take that advice ourselves. And now it's time for our story behind the story. And Brandon was talking earlier about our friends at Optum Arizona, and so much of what they're doing here in Arizona has to do with the community centers that they're building, which is really incredible. And we sat down with Ben Brock, who is the director of community centers for Optum Arizona, to hear more about why they care so much about the senior population and making sure that all those folks are well taken care of.
One of my favorite success stories in the Optum Community Centers is someone by the name of Margaret. And Margaret's physician encouraged her to start working out and start being more social after a heart surgery she had 2.5 years ago. After that heart surgery, she really was motivated. She wanted to start working out, and she tried a typical gym, but it was just too much and it was intimidating for her. Her physician told her about the Optum Community Centers, and she finally made her way in and slowly but surely started to be more engaged with the community. Pretty soon, Margaret was doing Pilates, she was doing line dance, she was working out in the center, she was making friends, and most important, she was having fun. And it was that fun that kept bringing her back, kept getting her to do more things. When she saw her physician 6 months later, she was starting to lose weight. Her diabetes was getting better in control. She was actually even reducing some of her blood pressure medications. Fast forward to actually just 1 month ago, Margaret let me know that she lost 102 pounds since the start of her journey, and her physician couldn't be any happier with not just the overall improvement in physical health that Margaret's having, but also just her emotional state and how she's able to just process life. Margaret's story couldn't make me any happier. It literally is the reason that I'm excited to come to work every day. It's the reason I'm excited to expand our programs to more cities in Arizona. It's the reason that I personally think I have the best job, not just in Optum, but in the world, because I get the joy of creating these centers, these programs, along with my team, to really support the community and support individuals just like Margaret. One of my other favorite stories that I have is a gentleman by the name of Ron. Now, Ron was brought into one of our community centers by his lady friend Jane, and he didn't want to come. He viewed it as a senior center. He had no business of going there, and she convinced him to come to a class for brain health. Ron came in, and it wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be. He started to kind of joke around. He liked the content of the class, but he didn't want to do more. Pretty soon, just like with our Margaret story, Ron did a little bit more and a little bit more. He started working out. He started expanding his network and making friends. He actually started a card group because he was an old blackjack dealer. He started a card group and started to teach others in the community center all about cards. Now, unfortunately, his lady friend Jane very unexpectedly passed away. Ron later shared with me that if Jane hadn't brought him to the center, and if he hadn't expanded his network prior to Jane passing away, there is no way he could have gotten through that challenging time. The community that he made there, the friends that Jane introduced him to, actually helped him through the grieving process of losing Jane.
And we want to thank Ben for sitting down here at the studio and sharing a bit of his story and his why. We like to get to the why.
Always, because our why, when we share our why and we become vulnerable to do that, it really does help inspire other people to be open about theirs. And it's a really powerful story that he shared. And we're really excited to partner with Optum Arizona as they continue to grow here throughout the state. They're going to be creating more of their community centers to really bring a lot of wellness, both mental health and also physical wellness, to a lot of folks. And as they grow, we're going to be highlighting their growth throughout the state.
And we should say, you and I have had the good fortune of getting to know Optum Arizona President Steve Macias. He's been on the show with us, and he just cares so much. And he especially has talked to us privately about how much he cares about the senior population.
Well, we all have our own personal why, our
Yes.
own personal stories, and he's empowered by his own struggles that he's had over the years, and
Yes.
we all do. And he's using that as inspiration to help lead an entire true healthcare company to make sure that they're leveling the playing field so that nobody is left out from living a fulfilled life.
That's right. That's right. And now we want to end on our sunshine story. Our producer, executive producer, excuse me, Christina, always finds these great sunshine.
She always finds time to be on TikTok.
She loves TikTok. So this story is about a lady named Rosie Grant who it's pretty interesting. So she had a college thesis.
Yeah.
And she had to start a TikTok for class and decide like creatively what could she do on the TikTok.
Well, she started roaming cemeteries.
She started roaming cemeteries.
And she noticed recipes engraved on the tops of the headstones.
Yeah, like notes with the recipes, like a family member's favorite recipe. And it's interesting what she's done with that.
So she ended up looking at that and she goes, you know what? What a cool way to perhaps honor some of the folks who passed on. And so she started taking those recipes that she would see on the headstones. She would go back and she would start cooking the recipes and she'd be posting the recipes and the finished dishes on TikTok. And I just think that's such a fascinating way to tell the lives of somebody who has already passed on.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you think about sort of a precious family recipe and having someone care enough to go and make that. And Christina was saying that sometimes, they have these hard to find ingredients. And so she really goes above and beyond. And Christina, how many likes does she have on this? Like 4.7 million likes of these recipes. So bravo to you for doing such a good job there,
And if you
Rosie.
really think about it, every family has that one person. It's usually the grandma. Usually every family has that one person that has that family recipe.
Oh, yeah.
And there she is kind of celebrating their lives, and she didn't even know who they are. But it's obviously catching on TikTok, and obviously a huge trend.
Yes, and thanks to all of you for joining us for Good Morning Sunshine.
Yep, and don't forget, if you're watching right now on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, hit that little bell notification button, and that way you'll always be alerted every time a new episode is uploaded. We'll see you back here for the next show.
Take care.